What's the most boring-sounding crime that turned out to have a wild backstory? My 17-year-old son got charged with felony theft after stealing 3 boxes of historical documents from the public library. The police detective sounded apologetic when she called me at work, saying they'd arrested my son at school that morning for stealing protected archival materials valued at over $70,000. I left my office without even telling my boss and drove to the police station, trying to understand how this could be real. He'd been volunteering at that library for 6 months, and the head librarian had written him a glowing college recommendation letter just last month. When I arrived at the station, I found him sitting in the interrogation room still wearing his school uniform with his calculus textbook beside him. His hands were covered in that distinctive old paper dust that turns your fingers gray, but he was sitting perfectly straight with his jaw set stubbornly. "Mom, before you freak out, I need you to understand what was in those documents I took." His voice was steady, even though his legs were bouncing under the table. The detective pushed a tablet across, showing security footage of my son using his volunteer access card to enter the restricted basement archive after closing. The timestamp showed Tuesday evening, and he was loading 3 boxes marked "Permanent Records, No Public Access" into his car while checking over his shoulder. I was going to scan everything overnight and return them before Wednesday inventory, but Mrs. Lisa came in early for a board meeting. He pulled out his phone and his hands were shaking as he swiped to a video. This is why I took him. The video from yesterday's basketball game showed our point guard going up for a three-pointer when his body went rigid, and he crashed to the court while his arms twisted at impossible angles. That's the 3rd seizure on the team this week. The detective shifted uncomfortably and tried to take control of the conversation. "Your son is facing serious federal charges for theft of government property." My son ignored her and kept swiping. 38 kids at my school have been hospitalized with tremors so bad they can't write their own names. He showed me a chemistry test that looked like toddler scribbles. "These are straight A students who suddenly can't hold a pencil." The detective's phone rang, but she let it go to voicemail. I figured out why this is happening. He pulled up a memo dated 6 months ago with the city seal. A chemical company buried 40 drums of industrial solvent under our school in 1994, and when they built the new gym 2 years ago, they cracked the barrels. The memo showed soil test results with industrial solvent levels highlighted in red, with handwriting noting "exceeds safe levels by 400 times" in the margins. At the bottom was a note that made my blood turn cold because I recognized the handwriting from years of birthday cards. It was my brother-in-law Robert's handwriting saying, "Delay remediation until summer to avoid panic and liability issues." This is the city manager telling them to keep it quiet while kids are having seizures in his daughter's classroom. My son stared at me as he said Robert's name, and I felt sick. The detective's phone erupted with calls. Uncle Robert has known for 6 months that we're being poisoned every day we walk into that building. He swiped to meeting minutes while the detective grabbed her cell. "Listen to what they said about us in their closed session. Potential liability from student health impacts must be weighed against immediate remediation costs and public relations damage." His voice got louder. "They called sick kids acceptable losses 3 times when discussing how many might get sick before summer." I realized that at Sunday dinner 3 days ago, Robert's daughter Haley's hands shook so badly she couldn't cut her chicken, and he'd chuckled and asked if she'd been drinking too much caffeine. Her dad sat at our table acting like he had no idea why his own daughter can't play violin anymore when he's known the whole time. Someone pounded on the door. He transferred cousin Mason to private school in January right after seeing these test results, but left Haley at the public school. The detective yanked the door open to 3 officers all yelling about parents dragging their kids out of the school en masse. "You want to arrest me for stealing documents?" My son's voice cracked. "Those documents prove my uncle poisoned his own daughter and called it an acceptable loss because fixing it would hurt his career." Within 2 hours, Robert was arrested at his office trying to shred documents as parents surrounded the building. The school was condemned, and 17 more kids developed symptoms before they could evacuate. The charges against my son were dropped, but he still got banned from the library for stealing.